So here are the scales and arpeggios and broken chord for grade 3. What we're going to do is, for each arpeggio, we're going to pair it with the scale that it comes from. I always think it's much easier to understand how we get the arpeggio from the scale and work it out, rather than just learning two separate unrelated pieces of information. So our first scale is going to be A major over 2 octaves, fingers only. Now in this one there are a couple of shifts which need to be practiced very, very slowly in order for them to become comfortable. We're going to be using 2nd position and 5th position. So here we go. We're going to spell our scale first of all. The A major scale has 3 sharps. So we get A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Let's look at the first octave. Again, fingers only, which feels a bit strange because we're used to playing the bass strings with our thumb. Anyway, the thumb is going to rest on the E string. We're going to be using index and middle alternating. So on the A string we get A, B, C sharp, and then we're going to play a D as well with our little finger. So we get A, B, C sharp, D, all on the A string. Then we're going to find the E on the D string. We're then going to shift with the same finger up to the 4th fret to play our F sharp. Here's what that sounds like. Then our 3rd finger is going to come in, play the G sharp, and then our little finger brings us back to A. We've done 1 octave for the scale. Here's that first octave. From there, we need a B, so that's underneath our 1st finger at the 4th fret of the G string. Then a C sharp, D with our little finger. Moving to the B string, we've got an E underneath our middle finger, little finger. It's going to play the F sharp. G sharp is underneath the 1st finger on the high E string. And then middle finger finishes the scale. So from the A that we just reached, we've got A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Here's the whole scale. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Here's the whole scale without me talking over it. On the way back down, we have to shift. Once we get to here, we've gone. Sharp to the E with the same finger, and then we're back in 2nd position. So here's the whole scale up to tempo. This is 66 beats a minute. As at previous grades, every A is a crotchet, every other note is a quaver. Here's what it sounds like. So the A major arpeggio, we're going to be up in 4th position, so our 1st finger is hovering over the 4th fret. We're going to start with the A at the 5th fret of the E string. Sounds the same as your open A, if your guitar is in tune. We have A, and then we're going to take 1, 3, 5 and 8 from the scale. We get A, C sharp, E, and then A again. So we're going to have A, C sharp on the A string, E underneath the little finger, and then the 3rd finger comes in and plays the next A at the 7th fret of the D string. C sharp is underneath the middle finger, E, and then our hand pivots round and the middle finger can get that very top A. Here's the whole thing. right hand, the first four notes, A, C sharp, E and A, are played with the thumb. From there, as we get to the higher strings, the final three notes are played using index, middle and then ring finger. We just reverse that for the way back down to the whole thing. The next scale, which is fingers only, is going to be B minor harmonic. So we're starting in second position. Let's spell this scale. We've got B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A sharp, B. So the first octave is going to look like this. Fingers only. I'm starting on the B on the A string. So I've got B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G. Same pattern of fingers on the first two strings. B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G. The middle finger is going to play that A sharp. And then we've got a B. That's finished our first octave. Let's just run through that again. From there, to start our second octave, we need a C sharp. I'm going to shift up on the same string. Middle finger is going to move to the 6th fret to grab the C sharp. Our next note, which is D, is the very next fret. So we just have this. From there, first finger is going to play an E, F sharp, G, and then on the high E string we've got A sharp, B, and we finish the scale. Let's play that whole thing. So we get B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A sharp, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A sharp, B. And we just reverse that for the way down. The shift is in exactly the same place as it was on the way up. Here's the whole scale slowly. Here's the scale up to tempo at 66 beats a minute. Again, the B's are going to be long, played as crotchets, everything else is played as quavers. For the B minor arpeggio, again, we're taking notes 1, 3, 5 and 8 from the scale, so we get B, D, F sharp, another B, and we've got our D here. All of that is in second position. To get the next two notes, the F sharp and the final B, we're going to shift up to the 7th fret of the B string. So you've gone from the 3rd fret, which was D, up to the 7th fret, which is F sharp. And then to grab the final B, when you're going to use your little finger, it's going to tuck in. We're playing that 7th fret of the high E string. So the whole thing, B, D, F sharp, B, D, F sharp, B. Here's the whole thing slowly. The next two scales use thumb and fingers combined in the right hand. So the first octave is going to be thumb, and then the second octave is going to be alternating fingers. So the first scale is G major, which you had at grade 1, and has one sharp. So it's G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. We're going to play this entirely in second position, just moving across the strings. No horizontal shifts, luckily. We're just moving across all 6 strings in one position. So we've got G, 3rd fret of the low E string. We've got G, open A string, Then on the A string we've got B, C, and D, E, F sharp, G. All those notes were played with my right hand thumb. I'm now going to switch to fingers for the higher octave. So we just had a G, we're going to find an A, fretted B, at the 4th fret of the G string, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Here's that whole scale. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, then fingers, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Here's the whole scale. Here it is up to tempo, 66 beats a minute. The G major arpeggio is actually exactly the same idea in terms of fingers as the A major arpeggio that we just looked at, except it starts from the 3rd fret, not the 5th fret. So the notes are going to be G, B, D, and G, spread over 2 octaves. We're going to be in 2nd position. We've got G, B, D, and then just like an A major, this 3rd finger comes underneath to grab the G. We've got a B, a D, and another G. The right hand is exactly the same 1st octave, or first 4 notes rather, played with the thumb. Then as soon as we get to the nylon strings, we're using I, M, and A. So exactly the same as the A major arpeggio. In fact, if you put your fingers anywhere on the E string and play that pattern, you will get a major arpeggio for that starting note. The second scale that uses thumb and fingers combined is the E minor melodic scale. Now, at grade 2, we had A minor melodic, and you might remember that scale was different on the way down as it was on the way up. So, E minor melodic is exactly the same. On the way up, we've got E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. Let's have a look at how that fits on the guitar. So we've got E, F sharp, G, A, B. We're going to shift to C sharp, 4th fret, D sharp, E. Here's that 1st octave again. We finished our 1st octave. We're going to switch to fingers with the right hand now, and we're continuing. We've got F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, then we move to the B string, D sharp, E. So the whole scale ascending sounds like this. Now on the way back down, we're getting rid of the D sharp and replacing it with D natural. We're getting rid of the C sharp and replacing that with C natural. So on the way back down, it's going to be E, D, C, B, A, G, F sharp, E. So that's where we finish the scale on the way up. 5th fret of the B string. We've got E, D natural underneath the little finger on the G string. 7th fret. C natural at the 5th fret. B, A, G, F sharp, E. We're going to shift with the little finger down to the D, 5th fret, C natural, B, A, G, F sharp, E. So the whole scale, from start to finish, sounds like this. the scale up to tempo at 66 beats a minute. For the E minor arpeggio, again, we're taking notes 1, 3, 5 and 8 from the scale, so we get E, G, B and E. If we put that on the guitar, we start with a low E, G on the E string, B, and then we're going to shift, we're going to jump with the little finger all the way up to the 7th fret of the same string. That gives us our next E. Here's the first octave, E, G, B, E. From there we need another G, then a B, which is at the first, underneath the first finger on the 4th fret of the G string, and then our middle finger can play that high E. Here's the second octave, so we've got E, G, B, E. Here's the whole arpeggio. The next scale is the chromatic scale, which moves in semitones all the way up from D to D. We're going to play every single possible note between those 2 points. Now there's one bit we have to watch out for, which is once we get onto the G string, we've played a B flat, our next note is B natural. We've got two choices. We can either play it as a fretted note on the 4th fret of the G string, or we can play it as an open B string. We're going to pick the open B string, so we need to watch out and make sure that we don't play two of the same note in different places. So here we go. We go D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D. That's the whole scale, so here it is. Here's the whole scale up to tempo, quavers at 66 beats a minute. The last scale that we have to deal with at grade 3 is what we call an interval scale. Now an interval is just the musical distance between two notes. This scale is an F major scale in sixths, which just means that each pair of notes that we're playing is 6 notes apart in the scale. Now F major, if you might remember from grade 1, if you can remember that far back, has only a B flat. That's the only accidental in that scale. So we get F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. We're starting the scale on the open A string. So if we move 6 notes above that, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. So we've got A and an F together. I'm plucking that with my thumb and my index finger because they're on adjacent strings. If we move up one note from there, we get a B flat with a G. I'm using my middle finger now to pluck that G because there's a string in between. They're not adjacent strings anymore. So those first 2 pairs of notes, A and F, B flat and G. If we keep moving up, we get C and A. Then D and B flat. I'm using my little finger for the B flat. Then we get E and C, F and D. Again, I'm using my little finger for the D. That little transition between E and C and F and D might take a bit of work because it's quite tricky to get your 3rd and your 4th fingers to work as a team and change between those 2 pairs of notes. Got E and C, F and D, move up again, we get G and E. That's nice and easy, it's just 2 open strings. And then we're finishing the scale with A and F. So the whole thing sounds like this. as playing the notes together, we can play them separately, which is termed a broken scale. So if I play them broken, this is what it's going to sound like. Left hand is exactly the same, right hand is just going to play the notes separately rather than plucking the two strings at once. The last thing we need to cover is a G major broken chord. Now, a broken chord has the same notes as an arpeggio, but the right hand approach is slightly different. So our notes for our G major arpeggio are going to be G, B, D and G. We're going to cycle through those in groups of 3. This is how it's going to sound. We've got G, B, D, and then B, D, G. Then we've got D, finally G, B, D. So let's cover the left hand first. I'm starting second position. I've got a G, B, and then an open string D, B, and then 2 open strings D and G. The next group is nice because I've got 3 open strings D, G, B. I'm going to use that time to move my left hand into third position. Just fretting 5th fret of the D string, which is a G, middle finger takes the B on the G string, and then index finger covers the D on the B string, so that whole thing. The right hand approach is the same throughout. All I'm doing is I've got thumb, index and middle finger, and they're like a little group that gets moved from string to string. So that's the first 3 notes. I just take that little unit and move it up and start on the A string, then I start it on the D string, I stay on the D string, stay on the D string, then bring it back down, start from the A string, and then finish with the last G. The whole thing sounds like this.